For over 2 centuries, one question has haunted French history. Did the 10-year-old boy, King Louis V 17th, really die in that prison cell? DNA evidence finally puts to rest the mystery of Louis V 17th's death, revealing a truth that's worse than we thought. Scientists extracted genetic material from a preserved heart, believing it belonged to the lost prince. What they discovered didn't just solve a historical puzzle. It revealed the horrifying reality of what this child endured in his final moments. The mystery of Louis V 17th's death has long captivated historians, royalists, and conspiracy theorists alike. Today, we uncover the scientific proof that changes everything. Prison child. Inside its cold stone chambers of the Temple prison, 8-year-old Louis Charles de France found himself thrust into kingship under the most terrible circumstances imaginable. When the guillotine claimed his father, Louis V 16th in January 1793, the boy became Louis V 17th in the eyes of royalists across Europe. But to his revolutionary captors, he represented something far more dangerous than any army. He was the living symbol of everything they sought to destroy. The child who should have been playing with toys was instead locked away like a dangerous criminal. The revolutionaries understood that killing a child king outright might create a martyr. Instead, they chose a more insidious path. They separated Louis Charles from his mother, Marie Antoinette, placing him under the care of a cobbler named Antoine Simo. What happened next began the systematic destruction of not just a monarchy, but of a child's mind and body. The prison became Louis Charles's entire world. The boy who once ran through the halls of Versailles now paced the confines of a single room. His royal education was replaced with revolutionary indoctrination. His fine clothes were taken away, replaced with the rough garments of a commoner, but the physical changes were nothing compared to what they did to his spirit. The revolutionary authorities needed the boy to serve their purposes, and they found the perfect weapon: his own innocence. They forced him to sign documents accusing his mother of the most unspeakable crimes, using his childish testimony as evidence in her trial. The cobbler Simon took perverse pleasure in teaching the boy revolutionary songs and forcing him to curse his dead father's memory. Each day brought new humiliations designed to strip away every trace of royal dignity. The child was made to wear the red cap of liberty and shout revolutionary slogans, his small voice echoing through the prison corridors like a mockery of everything he had once represented. But even as they broke his spirit, the revolutionaries feared what the boy represented. They knew that somewhere in the darkness of that prison cell lived the rightful king of France. And that knowledge terrified them. Their solution was not execution, but something far more cruel: the complete erasure of the child's identity and humanity. Yet even they couldn't have imagined how thoroughly their methods would succeed or how the consequences of their cruelty would echo through history. The weapon they had forged against the monarchy was about to claim its most innocent victim. Mother's betrayal. The document that sealed Marie Antoinette's fate bore the trembling signature of her own son. In the autumn of 1793, as the Queen sat in her prison cell awaiting trial, revolutionary prosecutors prepared their most damning piece of evidence: testimony from the 10-year-old Louis Charles accusing his mother of forcing him into acts of incest. The courtroom fell silent as the prosecutor read the damning testimony. Marie Antoinette, the woman revolutionaries called the Austrian wolf, sat motionless as her own son's words condemned her. The document bearing Louis Charles' signature accused her of the most unspeakable crimes, charges so vile they shocked even the bloodthirsty crowds of revolutionary Paris. Marie Antoinette's response was swift and dignified. She refused to answer such accusations, declaring that nature herself recoiled from such charges against a mother. But the damage was done. The boy's forced testimony became a crucial piece of evidence in the trial that would end with her execution on October 16, 1793. Vanishing boy. In the months following Maria Antoinette's execution, Louis Charles began to disappear in plain sight. The revolutionary government, having achieved their goal of eliminating the adult royals, found itself with a problem it hadn't fully anticipated: what to do with a child whose continued existence served as a constant reminder of its cruelty. By 1794, the boy in the temple prison was becoming unrecognizable. Visitors who had known Louis Charles before his captivity were shocked by his appearance. The bright, curious child had become withdrawn and silent. His once healthy complexion had turned pale and waxy. Most disturbing of all, he seemed to retreat into himself, as if his mind was seeking escape from a reality too horrible to bear. The revolutionary government began to realize it had a problem. The child they had hoped to use as a propaganda tool was becoming a liability. Dead, he might become a martyr. Alive, but clearly mistreated, he was evidence of their cruelty. They needed a solution that served their purposes while removing the growing embarrassment of his condition. New guards were assigned to the boy's care in early 1794. Men who were unfamiliar with his previous treatment. These guards found a child so damaged that they barely recognized him as human. He refused to speak, spent hours staring at the walls, and showed signs of physical deterioration that went far beyond simple malnutrition. The boy seemed to be disappearing before their eyes. The guards' reports from this period paint a picture of a child who had essentially stopped living while still breathing. He ate little, spoke less, and showed no interest in the world around him. When they tried to engage him in conversation or play, he stared at them with eyes that seemed to look through them to something else entirely. Laron, one of the new guards, later described finding the boy sitting motionless for hours at a time, his small hands folded in his lap, his gaze fixed on nothing. When Laron tried to coax him into eating or speaking, Louis Charles responded with the mechanical obedience of someone whose will had been completely broken. Death's embrace. The spring of 1795 brought no relief to the boy wasting away in the temple prison. Louis Charles, now 10 years old, had survived longer than anyone expected in his deteriorated condition. Still, his body was finally surrendering to the accumulated damage of 2 years of systematic abuse and neglect. June 8, 1795 marked the official end of Louis XVII's suffering. The boy who had once been heir to the greatest throne in Europe died in a cramped prison cell, attended only by his guards and a doctor who had been summoned too late to help. The death certificate listed the cause as tuberculosis. But those who had witnessed the boy's decline knew the truth was far more complex. Dr. Palatin, the physician who performed the autopsy, found a body ravaged by disease and neglect. The boy's lungs showed clear signs of tuberculosis. Still, Palatin noted other troubling conditions: severe malnutrition, signs of chronic stress, and what appeared to be developmental delays consistent with prolonged psychological trauma. But what struck him most was how small the boy seemed. Not just thin, but actually diminished, as if imprisonment had physically compressed his very being. The heart that had once beaten with royal blood was removed according to the custom for French monarchs, beginning a journey that would last more than 2 centuries. Dr. Palatin carefully preserved the organ in alcohol, perhaps sensing that it might someday serve as evidence of the boy's identity and suffering. The authorities were quick to bury the body in an unmarked grave in the S. Marguerite Cemetery in Paris. They wanted no shrine for monarchist pilgrimage. The burial was conducted in secret with only a few officials present to witness the end of the Bourbon line's direct male succession. What the revolutionaries didn't anticipate was how their secrecy would backfire. The hasty unmarked burial only fueled suspicions that something was being hidden. If the boy was really dead, why not allow his body to be viewed? Why the mysterious circumstances surrounding both his final days and his burial? Within weeks of the announced death, whispers began circulating through Paris that the boy had somehow escaped. These rumors gained strength from the government's obvious discomfort with questions about Louis XVII's fate. If everything had been straightforward, why were officials so reluctant to discuss the details of the boy's death and burial?